Hello, Gorillas. This is episode 4, season 4 of Guerilla Opera podcast. My name is Tae Kim, Ensemble pianist, and I'll be your host for this episode. Today, our own Guerilla Opera's artistic directors, Aliana de la Guardia and Julia Noulin-Mérat, are back to discuss the recent Dreamwalker experience and the future projects for Guerilla Opera. Thank you for joining us today. So what did you think about the Dreamwalker experience?
I would love to hear from Julia first.
Yeah. So Aliana and I had very different experiences because I was only able to partake remotely, so via Zoom, whereas Aliana was at the heart of it all, in the middle of the action. So in terms of the process leading up to it, it was interesting because it was a lot of like sending pictures and on Zoom, watching some of the tech and talking about it. So I had a sense of what we were about to present, but actually not at all. This is what I realized once I watched it live. It was so much more magical and amazing than I could even imagine. In the sense that I saw both in separate sequencing, but I didn't see a run through of how it was interwoven into one evening, which I thought was very successful. It felt like one big show. And I thought that was very strong, and it kind of immediately drew you in. And so in terms of that aspect, I caught myself watching it too and being like, oh, wait, I'm supposed to also be chatting about it or posting things in the conversation. And I think that's also part of the beauty of the live element, right? It's like you don't even know. And you get to kind of also notice all the little details and all the little sub layering, which is why we perform live. And I think we capture that beautifully. It's like, no, not one performance is the same. And I really loved also seeing people's reactions on the chat feature. There was that little, I'm going to call it joke, where at one point they're like, okay, goodbye, Aliana, this is your farewell party. And half of the people on the chat were like, where is she going?
I got like 5 messages at the exact time. They were like, wait, what? And then my phone was like, boom, boom, boom.
No, absolutely. And what I really also enjoyed is we not only did the performance live, had feedback from everyone. So it really felt like a communal experience. But then the next day to have the after party to kind of unpack that with our audience was really great. And to actually have them ask the artists like, oh, how'd you do that? Or what were you thinking? Or, I really like that moment and things like that. I think that was also super fun. I think something that we're all missing during this pandemic is feeling close to everyone and going through experiences together. And I think what was really successful from this presentation was not only did we enjoy fantastic music and watch opera, but it felt very interactive. And to me, that's the most amazing gift you can give to your community, right? A full experience. So yeah, that was my behind the scenes, into the scenes view. But Aliana, how was it for you in the heart of it all?
Yeah, I think the word opera is a stretch. But
that's why I'm calling it an experience. Yeah.
But I think that was the whole point. You know what I mean? It's like we were less interested in exploring what is opera than actually what is operatic.
Yes.
To me, there's really there's a big difference between those words. What's operatic encapsulates an experience, like an expansive experience, a spectacle experience, as opposed to what is opera and like trying to dissect what exactly that particular word means. Like, that's not interesting to me. Well, first of all, I should start by saying thank you so much to HC Media for allowing us to be on their locations and their property. They were extremely generous and really collaborative, and they were, we're an ambitious group and we come up with crazy ideas, and they were really great at brainstorming. They gave us staff and they gave us warmth and generosity, and we really just can't thank them enough. We're still in Dreamwalker in a way, because we're still filming part of the short film that is Ophelia's life dream. But to be in the middle of Dreamwalker Live was so cathartic. It was work. I was working, and it was in the best way. And everybody was there, and we were working really collaboratively as we have in the past, and maybe even a little bit differently, because was more of an experimental theater experience. It was kind of a little bit more moving. The parts were more moving, and there was less rigidity to it in a way, which I thought was nice. And honestly, for the time that we're in, it was nice release, to not be in something so structured and rigid was just fine by me. Everybody else was pretty great at flying by the seat of their pants, and to build it that fast. We got in there on Tuesday. We basically rehearsed it. They texted Tuesday evening. We were in there Wednesday morning with me, and then they teched it Wednesday evening, and then we basically rehearsed it all day Thursday and filmed it, so that they could then do the overlay graphics, so that we could premiere it as if live. So we did like the Saturday Night Live sort of trick, where we filmed it ahead of time and then actually aired it later. But it was live. We did it all in one take, even all the camera angles, everything. That was all one take, one continuous thing, one continuous flow. I really liked that. The performance, as if it was live. It felt like theater, even though it was all for cameras. The choreography between me and the cameras was really super cool, and it was really enjoyable to do it. I think you'll notice in the Dreamwalker Live, there was a lot of rotation, where the camera and I would sort of circle each other, and sometimes the light too. So at the very first shot, as I'm exiting, you see Keithlin moving the light one way and the camera is moving the other way, and I'm sort of going in between them. At the end of Ophelia's life dream, they talk about rotations, 100 revolutions around the sun and I'll collapse or whatever. So in the choreography, we tried to put as many revolutions in there as possible. So when I'm dancing with the balloon, I'm turning, I'm going around the camera this way. Keithlin's going around me. There's a lot of choreography that made it feel very like live theater, that I thought was really enjoyable, super, super cool. And Lane is always really fun, so.
The transition was so smooth, to the point where we thought Aliana was leaving us. You're not leaving us, are you?
No, that was actually my idea, because I really wanted the two pieces to be connected. I thought part of the virtuosity of the evening should be going directly from one to the other without a blackout and a scene change and all this like theater-y kind of bullshit. So I said, well, how do we get from one to the other? And the character Ophelia is supposed to be a woman at a crossroads going through something hard. And I at one point I just blurted out, well, like Lane, why don't we just say, bye, Aliana, have a good time. You're not artistic director anymore. You're retiring. And then, so we just made it the situation where Aliana is playing herself, retiring from Guerilla Opera. Because as with a lot of Lane's work, it's really grounded in reality. And I said, well, what's more real than playing me, and fashioning this situation around it. So that was fun.
Confused me, that's for sure. And a lot of watchers for sure. What were you happy about, and what do you think you could have improved upon with this experience?
I think in general, I was really happy with how it came out. I was happy to be working. I was super happy with the team. It was a really wonderful experience. Everyone worked really, really well together. I wish we had had more rehearsal time. Isn't that always the wish? Yeah. But even I think if we had one more day, we could have done much more detailed work with physicality and with the floor pattern and everything. I think we had a really good group that knew how to work really fast. And so that was a real benefit. But, you know, it's just how things go. It's like you work really hard and you always wish you had more rehearsal time at the end. So maybe we didn't need more rehearsal. But I really felt like 4 more hours or like 2 more hours, we could have done something so just detailed, you know, much more detailed, which is always what we're trying to do anyway. So.
Right. In terms of the experience for me, I know it sounds a little odd, but what I would love to do is like, it's so rewarding for the audience to be able to interact and to chat during the productions. But something that felt almost also very eerie for me in the Emergence concert is I wish there was a way for the performers to hear the applause or to have that other end, you know. And of course they can read the comments after the performance and things like that. But I feel like that's the one hiccup for me is like, how do you get to breathe together? And of course we can't. But finding a way for the performers to get that back to them as well.
So what's on the plate for November?
So on November 13, which is a Friday to 13, we are launching our Guerilla Opera Underground, and it'll run for a month. So the idea behind it is a kind of a speakeasy where each week we will be dropping new content material so that as a performer, you can, as an audience member, you can go back multiple times and have various experiences. So whether it's behind the scenes insights on the productions, or it's actually the productions, or new work that we have developed, it kind of like makes it a jam-packed speakeasy of all things Guerilla, which we're very excited about for people to get to experience.
So the way we're thinking about this thing is that Dreamwalker is sort of like an exhibition, right? Like an art exhibition or whatever with pieces in it. And so we performed it live, and that was one part of the exhibition. And now we're making it digital, and it's a new evolution of the exhibition where you see digital representations of each of these pieces that we created. And the exhibition evolves. The longer it's alive, the more it evolves. So like Julia said, each week we release a bonus track. The first week you're going to see it's just Dreamwalker Live and Ophelia's Life Dream, the short film that we're still making, and the video representation of Papillon. And those are the pieces that make Dreamwalker. And, you know, it's possible in a year we'll do Dreamwalker again, and maybe we'll add another piece to it. Like, the idea is that these programs evolve and they change. And as we as performers change and the world changes around us, you know, the program could be different. Or it could be the same, but with tiny little differences, you know, or, you know, we perform Dreamwalker outside and the screen is like 50 feet tall or something. So it's gonna
change. Or with an audience.
Or with an audience. But yeah, so that's the idea, is that it's an evolving exhibition. It changes. And so it goes from live to digital. The way it works is that you sign up online on Eventbrite. You pay a $10 cover charge like you would at any dive bar. And then you're signed up on Eventbrite, and you can come back as many times as you want. You can come back every week just for that $10, and you'll see the evolution, all the pieces that we're adding, and the full picture of what is Dreamwalker right now. And after you sign up on Eventbrite, you get the special page and a password to get into that page, which is why we're calling it a speakeasy, because you need a password to get in. So it's like a special web page, It has all our content on it. You need a password to get in. And in order to get that password, you have to sign up through Eventbrite.
So who's making the drinks?
We haven't thought of the quarantinis yet. We'll get there. So we do have 2 underground happy hours, and those will have signature cocktails, and we'll all be sipping and talking about Dreamwalker and whatever together, because I'm sure we're all going to be wanting to unpack a lot of things. So
beautiful. So what else is happening in November?
So this November, something else that we are launching is our writing collective. And they're going to be meeting every 2 weeks for 6 months. And the idea for this collective is the emphasis is really on developing your own libretto. So a lot of our applicants actually pitched us what they've been working on. So some of them have an idea and they kind of want to dive in. And then other writers, what they started working on one, and now they really just need a space where they can keep working on it. And the idea is that our participants were not just picked for who they are as artists, but also how they can contribute to the collective, meaning give each other feedback as they're creating their librettos.
Very cool. Very cool.
It's sort of like a think tank. And actually, I think they meet for 8 months, November to June. So.
Yeah, 8 months. For some reason, I thought, okay, yep.
The longer the better.
I also want to add that the writing collective is specifically created for people who are trying to complete text for a work. This is different from our libretto writing Guerilla Lab. Our libretto writing Guerilla Lab is more process oriented, and it's giving people tools in order to be able to write. So you don't actually actively have to be completing a work. If you want to just take a creative writing workshop that's geared towards opera libretti and new work development, like that's the one. The writing lab is like an 8-month long think tank helping each other to create and complete as much as possible a work.
So what is this Guerilla Lab that you're speaking of?
Yeah, so it sort of came from last summer. We really wanted to have more workshops, intensive workshops. You know, I take a lot of intensive workshops as a physical theater performer, and I was like, well, why can't we have something similar where somebody can just come and over the course of 2 weeks or over the course of however many weeks, like just learn a skill or learn something about enough. And so we have these Guerilla Labs, which are professional development workshop for artists or for people who are arts inclined. And right now there's that libretto writing workshop, which as of now is a 6-week intensive. Julia is doing a workshop on immersive and alternative production design. I do one on movement and physical theater, focusing on like strength and physicality. And then there may even be another one, but we're not totally sure. That's a surprise.
If we're still cooking
that
on
when we know. Yeah, we're still cooking.
But the idea is that, you know, it's very much kind of like when you go work out at the gym. This is an artist gym. So you're working on yourself. We're all at different levels. And it really helps you kind of expand your tools, but also if you're just curious about something else within the art form, that's a great way to explore it as well. I remember Aliana had a wonderful instrumentalist that joined your movement class, and that was a great way for him to kind of find a way to how to perform and do movement while actually playing an instrument. So,
or even just executing choreography, because you know so many composers are writing theatrical music. You know what I mean? They write concert theater, which requires the instrumentalist to maybe sometimes not even play their instrument, but just execute series of choreography. And how do you do that? Like, how do you execute this choreography with confidence? how do you think about how you're moving in the space once your instrument is removed? You know what I mean? So that was fascinating. And I think too, in the libretto lab, there were multimedia artists, there were composers, there were writers, there were filmmakers, there were all like
novelists,
novelists, like such a variety of artists that were attracted to this kind of work. So the Guerilla Lab is definitely for anyone and everyone who is fascinated and interested and wants to really learn more.
That's awesome.
And the production one came because in the libretto writing workshop this summer, I did one of the classes where I was actually talking to a lot of librettists and composers and talking to them about how to deal with design or how to make suggestions in text without being literal, and but also how to engage the other artists working on your pieces. So from that, it kind of stemmed from that to kind of create a class where, as a composer, you know, how do you create also a visual language and not just music?
This is very exciting. So if that's the case, what else are we doing for future projects?
Even though we are all quarantining and staying at home as much as possible, we're still moving ahead with creating new pieces. So there's been a lot of meetings and libretto readings and things like that in terms of the Zoom platform, because at least we can still keep meeting in that respect. And we're now at the phase where two of our pieces were actually meeting with the composers and the directors and kind of fleshing out, okay, what if we present this digital versus in person? So it's important for us to kind of think about the different alternatives. But at this time, we're not putting anything on the calendar for in-person performances.
I should say, too, that we're not really putting anything on the calendar for larger casted performances. Our larger works are generally not that large for opera. It's 4 singers and 4 instrumentalists, but still that's a lot of people to have in a room, and we would have to have quite a large room in order to do that safely, socially distanced, and to have 4 singers together in a room. Even just doing a concert reading, you know, we've instituted some protocols. So, for example, anytime we go on site anywhere and have to perform together or do something together, we all get COVID tests. We have self-assessment tests that we do, check-ins that we do via SurveyMonkey every day that we're on set. And we're about to add temperature checks. We were supposed to add it before, but the thermometer I bought was defective, so I had to return it and get another one. Anyway, you could cut that out. It's not that interesting. Yeah. But or you can leave it out.
But adding to Aliana's point, right now, the spaces that we're in have to be for 5 people. And so it's not just the performers, but for example, Keith Lane, our production coordinator, she has to be there to light the performances and things like that. So it's kind of playing, I want to call it a Tetris of people, right? Of who gets to work when to make the shows happen.
A lot of moving parts here,
It really depends on the venue, and for that particular venue, HC Media, they were really uncomfortable having more than 5 of our people, and I said, okay, we won't have more than 5 people, and so we really had to think about that. So the works that you're really going to see us performing live or even digitally are going to be works for a much smaller cast. But we're still developing the larger works and having conversations with the composers or, you know, libretto readings that we can do via Zoom. We're doing as much as we can to keep the fire under those operas. Whereas some operas we have are basically completed or almost complete, and those we're just holding and we're waiting until we can perform operas safely, and then we're going to hit the ground running
Yeah. I mean, this summer we receive a full score, and now we're just waiting to be able to perform it. So, yeah.
Oh, can't wait for that day. I'll be honest. That'd be nice. That'd be really nice. So anything else to add?
I'll just say really quickly, in addition to these sort of developing works, that we do have another COVID experiment program. It's not going to be called Dreamwalker. It's going to be called something else. I haven't thrown out any ideas of what it's called yet, but it's going to be great. It's going to be super cool because I'm great at naming things. Or so I like to say. I like to say that I'm great at naming things. But it's going to feature a new work by Bahar Royai and Denise Khatiri, as well as a work by Anahita Abbasi. So the new work by Bahar Royai and Denise Khatiri is a monologue that they're writing for soprano this mois and electronics. And the work by Anahita Abbasi is for percussion and baritone, which will be performed by Mike Williams, our wonderful percussionist, and also my husband, and Brian Church, who's been a member of our ensemble for a really long time. You've seen him in all our operas. Mm-hmm. And there will be an additional piece that will be for percussion solo, but it's for a vocalizing percussionist. So he's playing and he's speaking this story at the same time. So that will be an interesting program, and maybe there'll be another surprise on there, but we're not entirely sure. You're just going to have to follow us and you'll see. I'm all about surprises.
Absolutely. I would like to also add that every second Saturday of the month, we have these community drop-ins with various artists that we collaborate with, or from Aliana and myself.
And in December, Denise Khatiri is coming back, and she will do an amazing shadow puppetry workshop, which I think I would also like to do, to like attend and do it. And you've seen her work with us. She directed and did the animation for Papillon. She's extremely talented and very experienced, so that should be really super interesting.
A lot on the plate. Well, it sounds very exciting, even during this difficult time. Well,
we're certainly busy.
for sure. Well, thank you for joining us, and hope to see you soon. Yeah.
Thank you.
And this concludes this episode for Guerilla Opera Podcast. Join us in the Guerilla Underground on the 13th and community drop-in movement and performance with Aliana de la Guardia on the 14th. And of course, if you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe and support us on Patreon. Thank you for tuning in. Till then.